Joe Houston here with a brand new tent that was sent to me by RBM Outdoors. This is the Panda Large tent, and I'm sure they call it large because it is quite large. It has a 13 by 10 footprint with a 7-foot center height. Now, anytime I get any new equipment, I always test it out at home before I get to the campsite so I'm not fumbling around with it. I know how it works. I can make sure that it works. So I'm going to set this up in my front yard. Come along and join me for that ride. First things first, the same as if I was at an actual campsite, I am going to check the area where I'm planning to place a tent, looking for any debris, anything sharp that could potentially puncture the tent. Also, sometimes little sticks and different rocks, they hurt when you walk around your tent. So I'm gonna check and make sure there's none of those things. Okay, so I've done my check and I'm very confident that there isn't anything that is going to potentially puncture the tent or cause any problems walking around inside. So let's get the tent set up. Step 2 is to lay out our footprint, which this helps to protect the bottom of the tent. It also helps with insulation from the ground. Now you'll notice how I have this folded up. If you fold it up this way, every single time that you go camping, it will make for an easier experience when you go camping the second time around. I'm lucky I don't have a lot of wind today. Otherwise, this might be a little bit more difficult, but see how easy it is to lay out? All right, I spoke too soon. The wind did kick up and mess up the tarp, so I'm gonna get some rocks and go ahead and put them on the corners. If any time you are setting up your tent and the wind's kicking up, find some rocks, put them on the corner of the tarps, and that will help to make it less frustrating. Okay, now let's get our tent set up. This tent is pretty heavy, so it's best if you have 2 people for a tent of this size. Let's get this opened up. What do we got here? Oh, wow. Looks like it even comes with its own hammer. Check that out. I like it. And it's a multi-tool. Wow. Impressive. Look at that. It's even got a little saw. What a great little ad. It also comes with its own pump, but I've got an electric pump, so that's the way I roll. What else we got here? Got plenty of stakes. This tent came with an amazing amount of stakes. Okay, and we've got a little repair kit here. This is great. Get this thing turned around. The first thing that I notice is it's got a door here in the front and another door there in the back. This is our inflation point right here. Go ahead and get this plugged in nice and tight. Once I tighten that up, and I start to put the air in here, the air won't come back out. It's a two-way valve. So that's part of tightening that up. Got my electric pump here, and we'll get this thing all pumped up. As you know, this is my first time using this particular tent, so I'm not really sure how long it'll take to inflate. I know that my other inflatable tent took about 10 minutes, but during that time, I am going to make sure I am maximizing my time and doing other things that are necessary. In this particular case, I am going to lay out the rainfly and make sure I know how to put that on. So that'll be the next step I'll do while I'm waiting for this to finish. While that is inflating, I'm gonna get this accessory bag open and see what we've got inside of here. Okay, we've got some windows. These zip onto the tent to help insulate and keep the heat inside. Another set here. Then we've got our rain fly. And some stakes. Stakes, I'm assuming, are for the guy lines. The guy lines are the lines that you are going to string and put down, stake down to hold your tent down. I don't typically use them outside of the standard stakes in the bottom of the tent unless it's really windy. In a windy situation, it's going to help you tremendously to have those guy lines down. Also, certain campsites, you may not be able to stake down the typical way, so the guy lines are helpful for that. So I noticed that the tent wasn't inflating as fast as I anticipated it to based on my other inflatable tent. What I realized is that over here, there is another nozzle, inflation nozzle, that was wide open, so the air was just escaping. Also, don't know if these are two separate chambers and I need to fill one first or fill only one at a time. This is a perfect example of why I like to set up my items before I get to the campsite. This will reduce all the frustration and confusion. I'm going to get our pump started again here, and hopefully it will inflate a lot faster. Okay, that's a little more like it as it starts to inflate. With these inflatable tents, you gotta help it. Sometimes they get stuck on themselves. So it's best to give it a little bit of help. I'm gonna see if maybe I need to put some air in the opposite side. Maybe both chambers help. Once again, these are all the things that you gotta figure out before you get to the campsite. So we're gonna go ahead and try on the other side here to see if that helps it. All things you got to figure out before you get to the campsite. So it seems part of the problem is that the tent wasn't completely stretched out. So making sure that the legs aren't tucked under, making sure that both sides are all stretched out. Our tent is inflated. It's huge. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing staked down using the awesome hammer that was provided. You want to pull it tight so you've got yourself a nice taut straight line there. This is one of the reasons why some people prefer to stake their tent down before inflating it. I personally don't like to do that because there's often times where once the tent is set up, I'd like to move it or switch the position of the tent, so I always stake it after. But in this particular case, had I staked it before, maybe I wouldn't have experienced the issue of it going up. One of the things I immediately noticed is these huge windows it's got on this side of the tent. After doing a little bit more investigation, it turns out that there are two windows, and then this is a doorway, and it looks like those windows go to fill in these open spaces here. You'll notice the rainfly has this square hole here. That is for a stovepipe. So when I'm looking to decide how to put the rainfly on, I'm literally going to find that stovepipe position on the tent. And here is the stovepipe part of the tent. So I know that that part of the rainfly goes there. Let's take you inside. Check out how spacious it is inside of here. Okay, so the tent is now all set up and I've checked it out. I've figured out all the pieces. The next piece is to break it down so we know how to put it away prior to when we get to the campsite and we're not hassling with it and just bundling it up and throwing it in the back of the car. So that's the next step in this process. Before breaking down your tent, one of the things you want to make sure you do is make sure all of the windows and doors are open. This helps to push out any potential air that's in the tent when you fold it up. One hack that I have for my inflatable tents is I actually walk across it once it's in this state to push out any potential air. Considering this tent has a larger door that way, I'm gonna walk to try and push that air out that way. I'll do this a couple of times. And now it's time to roll. Okay, I was successfully able to get the tent back in the bag, adding in the accessories here, the pump and the stakes. Now, don't fret if your tent ends up a little bit bigger than when it came from the factory. That's fairly normal. But getting it back into the bag with space to spare, that is the key. We got the tent all packed back up. As you noticed, we had some issues setting the tent up, first with the air and second with figuring out the windows. But this is exactly why I set things up in advance when it's my first time using it. So when I get to the campsite, I'm not fumbling around trying to figure it out. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. And folding up the tarp, just like a sheet, nice and easy. Now, obviously, it'd be better if you had two people, but it can be done with one. And just like that, tarp is folded up nice and neat.